Hello everyone, this is Gossip and Chips, the channel where you can come and take a look at what the internet has to offer with me and have a snack while we are doing so. Today I'm having some long potato chips, which I'm probably going to break up as I watch the video. So we're going to watch the video all the way through and then I will kind of chop it into pieces to check to see if my impressions are your impressions. Let's jump straight into it.
Hey guys, so I'm about to have a vulnerable moment. I rarely do this. Don't make me regret it, okay?
I kind of feel like if you have to say, please don't let me regret this for putting it on the internet, it's probably a sign you shouldn't be putting it on the internet.
I'm gonna let y'all in my business just a little bit. Okay, so let me tell y'all the story about how I will never give a nigga that's not in my league a chance ever again.
No, not the leagues.
So you know how guys be like, listen, I swear, like, you ever give me a chance, I'm gonna really show you. I don't fall for those guys, right? I like what I like type person. If you didn't get me within the first 10 minutes of me talking to you, you probably ain't never gonna get me, right?
Okay, so she's really quick at assessments. 10 minutes. We have to keep that in mind.
So there was a gentleman that had been reaching out to me, when I tell you, for over 10 years. Over 10 years in my DMs, talking to himself most of the time. Within the past like 3 years, maybe I might have given him my number through Instagram because I was having a vulnerable moment.
I am a stickler for timelines, so she has established that within 10 minutes she can give a yay or a nay. This gentleman has been very romantically persistent for 10 years. Within the last 3 years, because of vulnerability, she has allowed him to have further access to her by giving him more contact information. So that means for 7 years, she has openly said she allowed him to have a one-sided conversation, and then for 3 years, she has participated more. All right, that's my timeline. Is it yours? I am going to need more chips.
And we've had conversations before. We've met in person.
So they've also met in person in real life. And the woman who's able to make an assessment of yay or nay in 10 minutes in the last 3 years has kind of been undecided, it sounds like. That's what I've got so far. What about you?
I just was not interested. Okay? It got to the point where he was so resilient, so persistent, that I was like, I guess I'll try. So whatever, he ended up getting my number, and now he's talking to himself in my DMs and texting me every morning, sending me prayers every morning, a scripture. Okay? I love that. And if I went through a really emotional time last year, so like little stuff like that was really hitting home for me and, you know, touching my soft spot. So he got cool points for that from me.
Is it just me, or is, when I hear her referring to, not being in her league and cool points, that's very gamified sort of language that she's using. I mean, I don't know her age, and I certainly think that she's an attractive woman. I think most people would find her attractive. There seems to be, I don't know, I don't know if I want to call it immaturity, but very gamified language about essentially relationships. It just strikes an odd note to me. And also, so far, it's been kind of like her signaling, well, she really wants the audience to know that he really wanted me. I didn't really want him that much. But because of vulnerability, and she kind of says it as if it's an illness. I came down with an illness, and as if it was a weak moment, which, to be fair, it happens to a lot of people. Sometimes when you are emotionally vulnerable, you get into dalliances, relationships, and other experiences, not just romance or sex. You try to soothe yourself with other activities or substances, and sometimes even people. And most times it's not the healthiest thing. But at any rate, I think that we get the point. She's hot, he's not. And she had a weak moment, and that's the only reason that this man was able to get to her feet, I guess.
For whatever reason, I don't really know how my brain functions and why I was allowing certain things to go on, but I did.
Another thing that I'm thinking is that she never really justifies in the video. It is a TikTok video, so it's not meant to be a video essay, but she never really justifies what she's basing her superiority on. Is it because she is just physically more attractive, conventionally speaking? Is it because she has more money? Is it because she's more academically successful? Is it because socially she's more successful? Is it because she has superior moral character? What is it exactly? She never really mentions the criteria. She just assumes that we would understand that she would be, she assumes that we would understand that most people, apparently men specifically, would be in a league inferior to hers, I guess.
Nonetheless, so here we are. I started being like, hey, if I'm in town, I'll hang out. He started being like, hey, I am going to send a flight for you. Come hang out with me. I want to show you that I want to marry you. And I used to respond like, hey, bro, every nigga says that, right? Every nigga wants a piece of you until they get you and then they're gone. No, I'm going to marry you. You're my dream woman. So now I'm like, all right, it's cool. I could go to a wedding with him. I like going to weddings. I like being people's show pony.
This was such a very interesting and honest thing for her to say, I think, because she's objectifying herself and she's appreciating the objectification. So she appreciates being someone else's arm candy and knowing that other people are looking at her as arm candy. For some people, that would not be acceptable or the done thing. But it does remind me of a quote from Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, fortunately or not, I think not, but for reflection, her therapy records were made public matter. And in those records, she talks about her sexuality versus her sensuality versus her public persona as like a sex kitten or a sex bomb. And one of the things that she said was that she didn't mind being seen as sensual, but she didn't want to be burdened by it. I won't be able to reproduce the quote exactly. If I do find it, I will pin it in the comments. And so Marilyn Monroe was able to distinguish between actually enjoying that people looked at her and thought that she was attractive and sexy, but at the same time, she didn't want to be burdened with the sexual needs of other people at the same time, I think essentially is what she was saying. And so I can understand where she's coming from when she says this. I can also understand why some people might not see that as the ideal thing. But I think that, good for her for being honest about what she likes when she's with someone. Okay, so I had to go find it. And the quote is, please feel free to correct me, anyone in the comments, is I seduce, but I don't enjoy being sexy. I want to be sexual. So she, in therapy, was able to work out the differences between this sexy public persona, that, she was okay with being seen as a seductress, but she didn't want to be sexy in her private life. She wanted to be sexual, which meant kind of discovering herself, what gave her pleasure, not thinking about her through the eyes of someone else. So she reminds me of Marilyn Monroe pre-therapy, where she's still finding pleasure in thinking about how other people must be seeing her. I'm not sure if she really understands herself, though, sexually from the inside out. It would be interesting. It's none of our business, of course. It's just a TikTok video. But I would be interested on how much this woman understands her internal landscape from the, and not seeing herself so much through the eyes of other people, other people's admiration of who they think she is, if that makes any sense.
Because I enjoy things like that, right? So I start considering actually flying to go see him. And now I'm like on his page picking him apart. Like, he'll send me videos like, hey, I went and got my teeth cleaned. I know how much you like when people get their teeth cleaned. I was like, okay, effort. He's like, well, and I smell real nice. I like that type of stuff too. I'm like, you know what? He's so nice. Let me give him a chance. So I'm looking on his page, like looking at his teeth, looking how tall he is, looking at his body, and then I go, what's up with that hairline? And I look past it. That should have been my telltale sign.
Honestly, I'm kind of confused about what a hairline would have to do with your better judgment or your best judgment or any judgment whatsoever. Because she's mentioned men disappointing her with talk about marriage. And she's talking about his hairline being the red flag. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit confused. But again, she seems to think a lot about the physical aspect, which is fine. There is the aspect of admiration and physical attraction and desire, and it's quite fine if you say, "Hey, I prefer people with X, Y, and Z characteristics." To each their own. But it's funny that she would choose the hairline to be the red flag and not her coming to the conclusion that all men essentially are lying bits of trash.
I'm looking at all his videos. It looks like he has like a freaking painted on hairline. And I still went against my better judgment. He got me. So even after all my investigative work of that hairline, he got me.
How did he get her? She's able to assess someone in 10 minutes, which is what she said at the beginning of the video. She, in 10 minutes, can see whether she's interested or not. For 7 years, this man was in her DMs talking to himself. And then for 3 years, she met him. I think maybe occasionally they met, or they met at least once in person, and they were chatting more mutually. And so, how did he get her? Again, she's externalizing all of the bad things, or the bad people are on the outside, whereas she is just vulnerable and on the inside. It's a strange thing.
This is how he got me. I went on that boat. When I went on that boat, I got real bored.
What boat? Where did this boat come from? I'm lost. I lost the plot.
I went on that boat. When I went on that boat, I got real bored and really, I don't want to say lonely because that wasn't the word, but I was just like in need of some type of energy, right? So he's messaging me while I'm on there, and I was like, you know what? I fly back to Houston I get back to Houston when I get there. Pull up. You live very close to there. Pull up. He was like, oh, I got this, that, and the third on Sunday. I was like, well, don't blow your opportunity. And he was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to take this opportunity. You're giving me a window of opportunity. I'm going to take it. Oh, Lord. He's like, I'm going to drive down there on Saturday, stop drinking with you about 9 o'clock, and then drive back at 5 in the morning so I can make it back for X, Y, and Z on Sunday. I was like, hey, baby, whatever you choose to do, that's your business.
A long drive to a destination, alcohol, and then a long drive back is not a good combination. Do not try that at home.
Thirsty, right? So, make a long story short, when I got off that boat and got back to the house, he was in Houston waiting for me. And I was like, just pull up to my mom's house. Like, just come hang out. I didn't realize by the time he got there how tired I would be. So now he's at my house, my mom's house, and I am exhausted. I can barely keep up with the conversation. He's chipper. He's ready. You get me? It's about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I am pooped. All right? But he's still there. Not leaving, not catching none of the vibes.
Okay, so again, externalizing responsibility. If you've spent some time on any body of water, ocean, lake, river, it can be a very relaxing experience, and also you don't really realize sometimes how much you exert yourself because you're enjoying yourself. So I can understand completely being tired after being on water. And if you are fatigued, you don't owe anyone unless it's sort of like a once in a lifetime wedding or something. But if it's a date or a hookup and you are tired, this is for anyone, not just women, you don't owe anyone attention or intimate experiences. It's perfectly fine to say, you know what, I'm unexpectedly tired. Can we reschedule? Or maybe instead of going drinking, maybe we can just have coffee and call it an early night and try something else tomorrow or next weekend. It's okay to do that. And secondly, the fact that she's externalizing again. This man does not understand that she's he's not reading between the lines, that she's tired, she's fatigued, he's not getting the hint, So she puts a lot of responsibility and expectation on this man to do all of the communication and all of the emotional work, at least to this point.
That I'm clearly not being myself. Make a long story short, I get up and go out. We go out. We go to eat and then we go to drink with my cousins and my friends. There were so many signs in the night. So many signs that I should have just took my black ass home, but I chose to stay the night with him because I felt like, he drove all the way here. I could at least stay the night with him. That's the least I could do.
In my humble opinion and in my experience, I disagree. I think that you do not owe anyone. That's not a debt to spend the night with someone and have an intimate experience because they drove to see you. You don't owe anyone an intimate experience. Nobody owes you an intimate experience. Perfectly fine to say, I'm sorry, I'm tired, or I'm sorry, I'm no longer interested, or I'm sorry, I cannot. You don't owe people intimacy or excuses about intimacy. That's just my opinion.
Boy, at 36 years of age, still dumb as hell. Dumb. So, stay the night. I wake up at like 8 in the morning. He's gone. I knew he would be gone. Let's also, when we got to the hotel room, obviously we showered. Baby, I'd never once seen this man without something on his head. You know that. Like you wouldn't put a do-rag on or whatever that was, his dreads. You wouldn't put that thing on your head to protect your hair. Cut it out. That hairline is on the struggle bus. I already know it is. Has to be. It can't. There's no other alternative.
God, are we going back to that hairline that you had 10 years to notice in 10 minutes?
Anywho, yeah, I called him like when I woke up because I was hungover.
Okay, so we know that she was fatigued from activities before him coming. Then she went out, socialized with him, had dinner, which would probably make her feel even a bit more, I don't know, it makes you feel a bit slower. Usually when you have a meal, then she had drinks on top of that. So she would have been steadily relaxed in the biological sense, which is really not, depending on the situation, even though you've had like social media contact with someone for a pretty significant portion of time, we're not sure about the frequency. You put yourself in a secluded and intimate situation with someone when you are extremely tired and under the influence of alcohol to the point where you're hungover the next morning. Those weren't really good choices. But, again, if she was uncomfortable with the fit, this is someone that she's admitting that she's not typically attracted to. She's kind of feeling uncomfortable, hoping that he would get the hint, but he didn't. I don't know, maybe the alcohol was a means to an end of tolerating it. Don't know. But if you find yourself in that situation again of drinking to excess for whatever reason in this particular type of circumstance, you really need to evaluate what you're doing.
And we had a little slight conversation, and he was like, hey, I gotta handle XYZ. Okay, go handle your business. I have not heard from that man since.
And I think here we really come to the crux of the matter. This is really what this whole video is about. She's upset and not able to channel it to the point where she's coming to the internet to make herself feel, kind of put her ego, the pieces of her ego together. She's upset because someone that she saw as beneath her, she conceded access, let's say, and he had access that he wouldn't normally have a right to in her world, in her universe. And he decided that he didn't want to have any more access, which is perfectly normal. And, it's not just this particular case, but any two people or whatever arrangement you can have an intimate moment and then decide that, it's not really for you. The rules are, in my opinion, again, everyone, you can let me know in the comments, but I think in this day and age, you set expectations, you set honest expectations. And I think on both their parts, there might have been a bit of immaturity in knowing how to communicate that. And I think she's having trouble digesting that rejection. And, quote unquote, I don't really think it's a rejection. It's just someone saying, they don't want any more. They don't want to repeat or take things further. And I think that deep down, because if we tie this back to the beginning of the video, she was talking about being disappointed. She seems to externalize expectations a lot onto the other person without contributing herself. Talks about marriage. So there's somewhere in there, there's an expectation of commitment. And somehow maybe she linked this finally conceding the ultimate intimacy in her mind, because there are different types of intimacy. But the sexual intimacy for her would have been her finally saying, well, here, I'm granting you your crown, maybe to be my partner or something. And then only to realize that he has agency. He's not as inferior or powerless as she thought he was, which was surprising to her. It shouldn't be, because this is how the world works in general, but it was surprising to her. But whether or not it were him or someone else, it could be someone who is in what she thinks is her league or what she thinks is above her league. Anybody could decide, hey, I appreciate having had this moment with you, but I'm not interested in taking things further. Anyone has the right to say that. And I think that she has a difficult time accepting that. I feel for her because if you take things that personally, then I'm sure it must be difficult. And especially if he's not giving her the attention, because, he's for 10 years, he's been texting her, he's been sending her prayers, yeah, he's driven all that way. So he really did woo her to get to his final objective. I don't think he was mature enough to communicate what the final objective was. He kind of left it in the air and then ghosted her, which is not it's not the done thing. And on her part, I think she does, what should I say to be kind? I want to be kind. I think she has unrealistic perceptions and expectations also. But at any rate, I think the best thing anybody can do in these sorts of situations is to be clear about your expectations. So if we were to put words in her mouth, it would be to say, hey, I'm looking for someone who I can be intimate with, and then also try out the possibility of a steady relationship after that. And if I were to put words in his mouth, it would be, I'm not really looking for a relationship. I'm looking to have fun with someone that I like. I think it would have made things a lot clearer for them very early on.
He did exactly what I told him he would do. And I really hate that for him because he's dead to me.
Again, she doesn't hate that for him. She hates that for herself.
Dead, bitch. I called him a couple of times after that to cuss him out, and he acted like he was just so busy with work. So busy with work and his child that he just couldn't fathom having this conversation right now, and that he would call me back. He called me back one time, but I was asleep, and I have yet to have the conversation with him. Baby, he has since gotten the "you are dead to me and you are a fucking loser" text message, which I have not heard back from. I also think I blocked him, so I won't be getting that correspondence back from him. But I say all that to say, to you nice guys out there that, you were hoping that one day I might give you a chance. I'm not.
It's so strange. She comes across as being in this sort of, in her head, in this kingdom where she has all of these candidates, yeah, just waiting for her hand, hopefully in marriage in her head. It's so strange to see how she perceives the world, as if she is this ultimate, it's very gamified, she's just ultimate prize for all of manhood practically.
I'm not interested in anybody. If you're not my type, I'm not even entertaining the thought of talking to you. He ruined it for all of you.
I think a much more productive exercise for her would be to really think about what happened to her, and work those conclusions a bit more, rather than saying, if you're not my type, and that could be a conclusion. If they're not my type, I'm not sexually attracted. I'm not going to force myself to be sexually attracted. That's very interesting. It's productive. And also she could say, if I'm not attracted to the person in other areas as well, I'm not going to force myself. She could also say, well, I tried a one night stand. I've tried one night stands and they're not very beneficial to me. I don't feel good. So I won't do them anymore. Those types of reflections, rather than announcing to all and sundry that this man has ruined your chances with me. You know, I think the more interesting paths that she could take mentally and life-wise from this experience that would be very uplifting for her, I think.
Welcome. Thank you for joining my TED Talk. I am done embarrassing myself for the day.
Well, guys, that was it. I am out of chips, but I did have fun sharing this time with you, watching and chatting and comparing. I look forward to seeing your comments, letting me know also what you were snacking on while you were watching with me. All right. As far as this TikToker, check out the description box. I will place a link with her handle, and I encourage you to go and check out her material as well. All right, so that you can maybe take a look at other things. I took a quick glance, and she does have other things on there that you might be interested in watching. Not necessarily romance, but might be interesting all the same. Bye bye.